Today is a nice rainy day, and before I go off to the gym, I wanted to make this quick video because I don't know about you guys, but especially recently, not recently, but I feel like throughout this series of Stranger Things, especially as the seasons have progressed, I have noticed a lot of, well, I won't say a lot of hype, but some hype around Will and Mike becoming a couple, aka Byler, in season 5. And with the upcoming season 5, there's a lot of anticipation of actually seeing that relationship officially develop on screen. As we know, this is going to be the final season, and a lot of people have their hopes up. They got their notes out, notes that they've taken throughout the past couple of seasons to support the fact that this relationship is actually probably a real thing. And a lot of people have really bought into this theory that they will become a couple. Will it be homo or will it be Will it be homo or will it be no-mo? There's a lot of people hoping for love here. Will they or won't they, or won't they? So like every season, when there's another season that's about to drop, I go back and I rewatch the series. Because God knows that they take forever to release a new series. I mean, come on. I think about the fact that I've been graduated from high school almost, I think, like 8 years now. And when I was in high school, I think it was like season 3 or season 2 or something like that. I don't know. It was like, it's been like a lie. Like, I'm like, we pretty much grew up with these people on screen. This show has really been dragging out. So in total, I probably watched Stranger Things a total of 4 times. But this time around, I wanted to pay close attention to the characters and also the relationships between the characters, especially Mike and Will, aka Byler's relationship, and also Mike and Eleven's, and just overall, whatever. I just was looking at the relationships in general. But I did pay not more of attention, but I intentionally was watching a lot for Will and Mike just because I had watched some YouTube videos and really got familiar with the theory of like their relationship signs in prior seasons. I really wanted to see if I caught any of these things myself rewatching the series, because I remember like not really even considering them being a thing or seeing that type of like dynamic between them every single time I watched the series. So I was like, let me just intentionally kind of keep these things in the back of my mind and kind of just watch from my own perspective to see if I actually notice any of these things that people are talking about. Maybe I missed something. And so in this video, I want to kind of go over some of their theories, my opinion on why I feel like it's probably a less likely type of situation where they'll be together in a romantic sense. From personally me watching it, I could definitely see clearly how Will's feelings for Mike was there, but I didn't see any evidence of that being reciprocated from Mike in any type of romantic sense like Will does, or like people want Mike to feel, like people want Mike to kind of reciprocate those feelings, and I just didn't catch that. But let's be clear, I'm not a hater here. I'm not one of those people that don't want to see queer relationships in TV and movies, because I'm queer myself. I'm a homo. I'm a big homo.
Please don't hurt me.
And so when I watch shows like this, when I definitely pull for seeing that representation in media, because of course, in a sense, it kind of represents me as well. So I'm always going to root for that overall. But when we were watching it, I didn't have my own opinion per se. I was just trying to go in there open-minded, more curious as to what I would discover watching the series from my own, like, you know, perspective, not really to go in and try to be definitive about any certain position, but just kind of observe and see what was actually happening within the series between these characters. 1 month later. I ain't gonna lie to you guys, I recorded this video like a month ago, but knowing how I am, I took forever to edit it, so my bad. And because of that, the first part of the season 5 of Stranger Things has already released and I've already watched it. Today is November 29th, okay? So because of that, I'm gonna take a different like little turn than I initially was going to. So I'm just gonna say what I think just straight up, and then also kind of piggyback off of what we learned off of this new season so far, at least pertaining to Will and Mike, and maybe some other dynamics going on there that I feel like, you know, I kind of suspected. Okay, so here's my thoughts on Will and Mike. I've already kind of touched on that in the beginning, so I just want to expound on what I've already exposed, of course. So for me personally, like I said, it came across like Mike really does see Will as his best friend. And no point throughout the series did I see solid proof or evidence or any type of inkling that Mike had feelings for Will, especially in moments where it should have been obvious. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to break down a few moments that I'm, talking about. So we look at how Mike interacts with Will just in general, like just the way that he treats Will. There's no like lingering stares, no let's just try to get some alone time together. There's no type of like inkling that there's nothing evident from Mike that he wants anything more from Will than his friendship. And I think in moments where they could have maybe played around, like they're gonna do a relationship between the two, I feel like that would have been perfect to do in season 3. Season 3 would have been perfect to see Mike and Will together, because why? Elle was out of the picture and they had plenty of time to have quality time together. But instead, what do we get? We get Mike pretty much telling Will, it's not my fault you don't like girls. And so that whole situation turned into something that could have been a door anyways for him to kind of like think about himself and his feelings for Will, and seeing that he hurt Will in that moment. Maybe he would have reflected and be like, wait, I actually kind of feel him a little bit. You know what I mean? Like there could have been like something there to kind of show that Mike had some type of feelings for Mike throughout that season, because we didn't see Mike and 11 back together to the end of season 3. So that was a prime time for them to create some type of dynamic between Mike and Will where 11 was not in the picture. And then also it's like the perfect middle ground before things really start to speed up as far as the plot and things get a little bit more like serious and everything else. And they could have like had more time to develop in time for season 5. So that way season 5 they will already have chemistry from the past, a build up that's natural to where boom, we get exactly what we're hoping for in season 5. And people look at the scene in season 4 with Will and Mike in the car, and my thing is just the fact that, like, for me, when Will gives Mike that painting, Mike just seems like, oh bro, that's cool. You know, it's like whatever. Like it didn't come across like a lingering stare, like wow, you did that. Like not like you know, like I mean, like the little eye contact, the little extra minute of like looking at a person, observing the person. And sure, you might pull up the clip of Mike looking at Will, but I think Mike just recognized that Will was sad. It was just probably just like, you know, he probably just sad about everything going on. I mean, 11's missing or whatever. Like we don't know what's going on with that. There's all this stuff going on. So I don't think he really internalized it in the sense of like, I like you. You know what I'm saying? It didn't come off like that. And like I said, if you like somebody and they give you something like a painting and it's how cool it was and thoughtful it was and what Will gave him, I feel like Mike's reaction was very mid. It was just kind of like, oh, that's nice. You know what I'm saying? And so we got to see how Will sees Mike as far as being the heart, which I agree. I think some people would say that, I mean, of course, I think Will is probably Mike's best friend. I think we kind of seen Dustin having that conversation with Mike, which is very rare to see them one-on-one anyways. But during their bike ride, when Mike and Dustin were having their little conversation one-on-one, Mike was pretty much like, I mean, I guess he didn't feel like he was one of Mike's best friends, or I guess he assumed that, you know, he wasn't. And Mike was just like, no, like you're my homie, like you're my friend, like I don't see you as anything less than that. So Mike knew exactly what to say in that moment to Dustin, and this brings me to another point. Mike does not play about any of his friends. He was really willing to jump off of a cliff in season 1 for Dustin to save his friend. He was willing to jump off of a cliff to save his friend. That wasn't Will. You know what I'm saying? Like he was willing to die in that moment, but who saved him? Elle saved him. But the point is that Mike really is the heart of the group. He keeps everybody together. He's like, you know, and that's what, you know, Will's seen that in him. And so when we look at that, it's just like, you know, of course, Mike shows love for Will because that's his friend. He doesn't play about any of his friends. He doesn't play about his loved ones. His whole family, as we saw in this new season, they don't play, especially the women. We won't talk about the dad. But everybody else, the kids and the mom, like they don't play. So when I look at that, I'm like, well, Will has always been emotionally intelligent as far as how he's handled his friendships. He hasn't always been perfect because he's a kid, you know, whatever. But for his age, from the beginning, he's been very emotionally intelligent, been the heart that kept everybody together, and kind of gives like this perspective that like reminds people, Like he kind of keeps things level, human, things like that, the care, the love that he provides. And then also you got how he treated Eleven and how he was the one out of everybody else that saw her as a human first. And I think people have like this perception of Mike, like, oh, he's obsessed with power. But I think that what debunks, well, we'll get into that as far as like Mike and Elle. But anyways, the point is that from that very first time we actually were introduced to Mike, we've seen that he's a very like emotionally intelligent person, very caring, in the way he took care of Elle and like show her compassion where anybody else was treating her like she was like somebody dangerous that needed to be, you need to like keep her away, get her out of here. He was the one who remembered her humanity. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not weird for me to see Mike caring for Will. But my point is that while Will and Mike have a close friendship, you can look at any scene that they were in together and there's no type of romantic reciprocity coming from Mike towards Will. That's just the truth. I don't see it. There's nothing there. And like I said, throughout the earlier seasons, they would have had a perfect opportunity to lead up to that if that's what they wanted to do in a natural way that wouldn't piss people off. But instead, they strengthened Elle and Mike's relationship. You know what I'm saying? When they had the opportunity to instead put that energy more towards Mike and Will, if that's what they're going to do. But no, they put it towards Mike and Eleven. So that's that. But I also think when it comes to Will, my opinion is, while we may be upset as queer people to be like, dang, he doesn't get the guy at the end. Like, it's sad, right? But I don't feel sad about it. I feel like what makes Will's arc so relatable is the fact that Will does not rely on, like, we don't need him. Like, for me personally, I think it's a whole different thing when you are able to grow as a person and you're not relying on anybody else for that source. And that's kind of what my theory was already before the new season came out, was that I feel like Will's arc is focused around him accepting himself first. And I feel like that's more powerful than him getting the guy at the end. I feel like what I love so much about his story is that while he was in heartbreak, what caused the thing? Like, even in the van scene, what resulted out of that? Acceptance from his brother. You know what I'm saying? That's where it started at. Acceptance from his brother. While he was trying to win the love of somebody else, Mike, his brother was someone who came in and was just like, look, I accept you for who you are. That's big. I think that was the start of him slowly starting to accept himself. Then we have the new season with Raven and how okay, so clearly her name is not Raven. Okay, I kept wanting to call her Rachel so bad. I'm terrible at names. It's a very terrible character flaw of mine, but I know I butcher names throughout this video and then also the seasons, but I promise you I know what I'm talking about. It just happens when you don't take notes, and like, usually I do notes in my videos, but this time I was like, let me just speak my mind rather than trying to be so organized, and look what it resulted in. Anyways, I promise I know what I'm talking about. We're just gonna continue with the video. Her story, somebody who actually understands like what it's like and actually is living it, older than him, kind of has like a way of being able to communicate with him and understand like where he's coming from because of her experience. Like, seeing that she's able to relate to him and also speak to him in a way that like he's like, you get it, you know what I'm saying? And so I got so happy when I saw their dynamic and when I saw how she was encouraging him to accept himself. Forget the guy, accept yourself. And once you do that, like, you're unstoppable. And I loved that scene so much when they had that one-on-one, that heart-to-heart, because it took the attention away from Mike and put it back on Will, for himself anyways, to realize, wait, it's okay to be who I am. Also, Raven needed that as well, to see that like she's not alone, to be able to kind of solidify the acceptance within herself. You know what I'm saying? To be that for somebody else when she didn't have it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just kind of like a full circle type of thing. And so we get to see Will accepting himself. And the fact that he was even happy to see Raven talking or with the girl, because it's kind of like, wow, like, I'm not weird, like, I'm not crazy. And like him being more intrigued by it, like, wow, like, not judging, but just like he found he's not weird, And so I felt that on a deep level, because like when you're going through that phase where you're trying to accept yourself, even if you're not like a queer person, it's just like to have somebody who sees that, who recognizes it, and who's able to talk to you and kind of encourage you and bring you back down to earth, and ground you. Like, that's so like, I wish I had that growing up, honestly. I really do. And so my point is that it confirmed the fact that what I thought was true. His journey is about self-acceptance, and in that is where the power lies. Accepting himself is also accepting his power, being able to be in alignment with that, which is what we saw at the end of season 5. When he finally accepted himself, when he's finally allowed himself to see himself and accept himself for who he is as a whole, is when he was able to access the power that he had, because he had been suppressing it that whole time. So that to me is way more beautiful than anything else. There's not going to be a Mike and Will relationship. It's just not. And I'm happy about that. You know what I'm saying? I feel like everything up to this point has been intentional on their end, as far as the writers and everything else, and I'm not mad at it. If anything, I thought that, okay, this is probably just going to strengthen Mike and Will's relationship, because I don't think Will's going to have any type of resentment towards Will or anything like that. I think it's going to strengthen their friendship. Yeah, I mean, that's my thoughts on it. They better not kill Raven, because I'll be so mad. I don't think they will do that, but still. So I know that I also touched on the whole power thing with Mike and 11, and how Mike might be obsessed with power, and I wanted to address that because that was my perception at first. And I think after rewatching it, I realized, I think it was season 2 and then also season 4 that kind of confirmed it for me. And it was when Mike spoke up for 11, when they basically were like, well, she could die. You know, she could literally die. And he was the only one who was willing to speak up and be like, is anybody, why are you guys not concerned about her? And of course he was just like, oh, I can't lose her. I love her, whatever. That whole scene.
Trying to demonstrate how careless Max is with Eleven's powers. In fact, how careless all of you are. You're treating her like some kind of machine when she's not a machine, and I don't want her to die looking for the Flayed when they've obviously vanished off the face of the earth. So can we please just come up with a new plan, because I love her and I can't lose her again.
And for me, it was just that showed me that okay, I think his feelings are real, because it's kind of you wouldn't consider that somebody losing somebody or being that passionate if you didn't truly love somebody and care about that person, their well-being. While everybody else was seeing her as more of a weapon, something to be used, he saw the humanity in her before he saw her powers. He saw her as somebody who could literally die, lose her life, something could happen to her. You know, and the thing that is so important to remember is that from the beginning, people seen her as somebody dangerous, as a weapon, whereas Mike from the very beginning, before even knowing about her powers, cared about her. He saw her from the moment he looked at her. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just kind of it's not about power. This is a genuine connection. And you can also argue, yeah, he's a bit controlling. I would agree. I mean, you're dealing with a kid who's seen her go through a lot of different painful things. The way that she was treated her whole life up until that point, treated as an experiment, as a weapon, and him wanting to protect her humanity, being the first person to do that before Hopper. And then we see Hopper as well having that same type of protective thing of wanting to be controlling because he doesn't want to lose her, you know, wanting to protect, her, because he's lost a child before. He wanted to be a father. He gets to be a father again to 11. And so I think he's very serious about protecting her. But also I think he also, just like Will, they had to learn that she has to make her own decisions. You can't control her. You know what I mean? Then you're just Papa. So I think that it's kind of a growing thing, but I really do feel it's real love. They see her as a human first, and they want to be there for her, because although I know that everybody else cares about her, I don't think anybody cares about her in the same sense of how Hopper cares about her, how Will cares about her. Like I said, I think they still have this idea of oh, she's the one with the power. If anybody could save anybody, it's going to be her. And this whole idea of seeing her as somebody who doesn't need to be protected. Oh, she'll be all right. Willing to risk her dying without even batting an eye. Whereas they're Will and Hopper are no, we need to think about this and make sure that she's going to be okay. We're going to figure this out, but it's not going to be at the point where we're just willing to sacrifice her. You know what I mean? And so that to me shows me that it's real love. And so now when it comes to season 4, we see that, Mike isn't as open about loving 11 and so on and so forth. Just kind of feeling we find out that it's because he, of course, loves her. He doesn't feel he deserves her. He feels she'll one day figure out that he's just not, he's just nothing, where she has all these abilities and everything else, and he's just random kid who happened to be lucky enough to find her. You know what I mean? And like maybe she'll wake up one day and feel like there's better options out there and that she won't need him anymore. And that's real. Like, come on. You find somebody that you fall in love with and you see that they have all these, it's like everyday life, right? This whole idea of, oh, this person, they're out of your league type of situation. Like, it's just stuff that we deal with already. So just kind of like imagine a situation like that and being like, what if like she doesn't, like what if she moves on? Like, that's a real fear. And you have to also keep in mind too that while she was writing him letters, she was also lying about the fact that she had all these friends. And so of course it's going to amplify, make him feel some type of way, because this is his first time being without her. They're long distance, they don't have social media like we have. So it's just like you only rely on these letters. You're not seeing this person. They're telling you all these great things that are happening for them. Maybe your life isn't exactly like that, where you know it's not as like, oh, you're not making all these friends and stuff like that. So he probably felt like, dang, like she's gonna move on from me. Like she's not gonna, you know, like of course that's a very human thing to experience, especially for somebody like him who's like a teenager. Like of course you're gonna have like these thoughts and feelings. It's gonna make you want to like protect yourself a little bit and be like, I don't know if it's even safe for me even to say that. You know what I mean? Like I totally could understand where he was coming from with that. And so later on in this season, we see him confess his feelings thanks to Will, who is able to get him to express his feelings.
Don't stop. Okay, you're the heart. Okay, remember that. You're the heart.
I love you. Elle, do you hear me? I love you. I'm sorry I don't say it more. It's not because I'm scared of you. I'm not. I've never felt that way. Never. But I am scared that one day you'll realize that you don't need me anymore. And I thought that if I said how I felt, it would somehow make that day hurt more. But the truth is, Elle, I don't know how to live without you. I feel like my life started that day we found you in the woods.
And we see that Mike finally admits to 11 that like he loves her. He said it multiple times that he loves her, and that he loves her on her good days, her bad days, with powers, without powers. Like he really poured his heart out to her. He wasn't playing about it, okay? And it was exactly what she needed to hear in that moment to save her life and everybody else's life. So to me, their build up throughout the series is so real, and it's something that like that type of connection you can only hope for. And so I don't see that being something that they'll just throw away to throw in Will and Mike being together. That's just not gonna happen. Let's be real. It's not gonna happen. So I like both dynamics for a reason. I like Mike and Will as friends because they understand each other. Like they're just like the typical best friends. They're the type of best friends that you wish that you could have. Like their group in general is like a type of friend group you could have. I grew up watching like Goonies and stuff like that. I love to watch like coming of age like type of movies, and I always loved the ones with like really tight friend groups. And so to see Stranger Things and to see how they show up for each other, how they care about each other, how they love each other, how they'll fight for each other, it's something that's like amazing. I'm like, I don't feel like they need to throw in a romance between Mike and Will unnecessarily. If it was planned out better, sure, but let's be real, it's not gonna happen. But when it comes to the van scene between Will and Mike, it also made me realize, I think that moment was Will realizing that he has to in some type of way accept that Mike loves 11. Okay, I think that that's the reality of it. And that's what I kind of took it as. It looked like it was more so having to accept the fact that this is how it is. And then also the scene where Mike is he gets Mike to kind of confess to 11 how he feels about her, like saying like, hey, you're the heart, whatever. Kind of like being able to just surrender in a sense to saying, okay, this is the person that he loves. This is the person that he's showing up for. But after seeing the new season, like, I guess he was just trying to figure, like, he was talking to Raven about kissing or whatever, like, how to know somebody wants to kiss you or whatever. And so it seemed like he's still exploring that. So I might have been wrong in that thought as far as, like, thinking that, like, he was accepting the fact that Mike wants to be with 11. I think that if Mike and Will kiss, it'll be because Will initiated or probably felt like he was supposed to, or like it was a good moment, but I don't think it'll result in a situation where it's reciprocated by Mike, if that makes sense. And maybe might lead to like Mike being accepting, because I feel like one thing about Mike is that he seems to be emotionally intelligent and accepting. I think that if anything, it'll probably just be like a thing for Will to be able to have expressed that, you know, in a sense of like he actually like acted on it. But I think that it's not going to result in anything romantic at all. And I know some people say that Mike is probably dealing with some internalized homophobia. I don't think so. I just think he's oblivious. He seems like one of those type of guys that, like, he's aware of gay people, but it's not really reality for him, or like really being aware, because it's not his world. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not his reality. So like, I feel like he's just one of those guys that's just completely oblivious to those type of things, because it's not within his ballpark. And so I don't think it's a situation where he's internalized like homophobia. Like, he didn't, even when he said like, it's not my fault you don't like girls to Will, I don't think it was like a homophobic type of like. But yeah, I think Mike is just oblivious. That's literally what it is, because his heart is on 11, and I really don't think he like really saw Mike as gay. I just think that they see him as behind. Think about the dialogue that led up to that point. Like, the way that Will wants to still be playing Dungeons and Dragons and everybody else seems to be focused on girls. I think for him, he's just like, they see him as kind of like behind or not as caught up, but I don't think he sees him as gay. And so I think that he's just oblivious in a sense of like, he has no clue. I don't think he has any clue. I think they just see him as like just not as developed or where they are. Like, he's still kind of stuck at being a kid, and I think that that's just how he sees it. So yeah, between them building up 11 and Mike's relationship consistently and strengthening it throughout the seasons, I think personally they're endgame. Let's be for real. They're going to be endgame. I think the first part of season 5, we didn't really see a lot of them together, but when we did see them together, like, obviously they have love for each other. It's not like before where they're just all up in people's face. Mike was yelling about 11 every 5 minutes. It's more so like, I think they just kind of established a relationship with each other where Mike trusts, 11 to take care of herself, is not as like worried about trying to jump to save her. I think he's just kind of allowed her to do whatever she does, and they love each other. It's just kind of like, it's a more mature type of relationship that they have now, and maybe we'll see how things kind of go later in the season. But I did see a picture of Will and Mike kissing or whatever. I don't know if it's real or not, but I feel like if that is true, I don't feel like it's going to take a romantic turn. I just think this is going to be a part of Will's development as far as self-acceptance, and I think it'll probably lead to Mike and Will strengthening their friendship and Mike accepting Will for who he is, and then Will, of course, being in a better place mentally. I think that he'll be able to take that not as a rejection, but more so like being proud of himself for being able to have the courage to express, and then also being able to keep his friend as well. I think that's, yeah, I think that, yeah. But with some of these theories, I realize that a lot of them, y'all really be reaching. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like some of them, okay, understandable. But I feel like when something's right in front, I think people don't be wanting to look at what's right in front of them. And so they be looking at any type of symbolism that they can find to support like their theories, which is fun. Like, that's what it's all about. So I'm not like mad at it or anything, but I do feel like if you look at it at what it is just right in front of you, you watch the development, it doesn't give off any type of like solid relationship. So now there's other things that kind of supported it, like how Will might look at Mike. How Mike looks at Will, or like lingering looks, or like a deeper connection, or like them actually connecting or having some type of tension. There's no tension between them. And so it's just kind of like looking at that, I'm just like, how you turn like literally a nothing burger because Mike is not reciprocating anything towards Will into a relationship later. I don't really see it. And even if you watch season 5, there's no type of romantic like thing going from Mike to Will to indicate there's anything there. It just gives off friendship. It gives off, this is my friend, and that's only this part 1 of season 5 though. But a lot of people are saying they better not make them a thing, because I will literally be pissed and be upset, and I don't think that would be the case if it wasn't for the fact that they did not like develop anything beforehand. Like, if they were gonna do something, like I said, it should have been early. They had the opportunity to focus on Will and Mike's relationship in a more romantic sense, but it wasn't like that. So with that being said, I also wanted to say that I just really value Will and Mike's relationship as friends in a good way, just because I feel like their type of friendship is something that you would want to have yourself. Like, I value their friendship for what it is, and I personally wouldn't want it any other way than what it is right now. And that's why I don't necessarily push for there to be romance between them, just because I value their actual friendship and the fact that they've known each other since kindergarten. For me, just seeing how they grew up throughout the series or whatever, and just seeing how close, not even just them two, but the whole group is together, I value their friendship. And it's a type of friendship that is rare, that a lot of people don't even have for themselves, and if they do have it, it's something that they really cherish. And I feel like something romantic would kind of for me, at least at this point in the series, it wouldn't make any sense. So while I do feel like it kind of sucks to see that Will doesn't really get that happy ending in that sense with Mike, I think that it is a happy ending in the sense of they have a stronger friendship. I think that there was a reason why they had these dynamics turn out the way that they did. You know, Mike and Will, and even Mike and Elle, and all these different types of things. I think that they're very intentional about how they did it and how they went about this series and how they represented these characters and these storylines. They have a little bit of everything for everyone, you know. And I feel like for me personally, being able to connect to this series, and why I feel like a lot of people connect to this series, is that you can feel and relate so much to these characters and their experiences. Like, I know some people is just kind of like, well, when that stuff happens, it kind of just strains the relationship. But it seems like Will genuinely loves and cares for Mike to stick around and to want to be there and be his friend and see him happy, even if that means that in the sense that he's heartbroken. So in a sense, like I said, it's a bittersweet thing, but I feel like I like this element in the series just because it's so relatable. It's probably one of the most heartfelt moments or situations in the series that I deeply relate to, and I'm glad that they kind of have that in there, just because I feel like that's so relatable as like a kid, you know what I mean, going through stuff like that and that pain experience. Like, I just get it, and I feel like even if you're not a homo or like gay or anything like that, I feel like a lot of people can relate just in general, being young and having your first like real big crush, or even just being in love for the first time, you know, when you're like a teenager. Like, it's a really intense thing. So that, and along with the friendships and family and all these other types of things, I feel like really is what makes Stranger Things such a memorable and loved series overall. But with that being said, hopefully this didn't piss anybody off too much. Like I said, who knows what could happen in season 5. We're getting like, I think, a 3 parts for season 5. So we'll be getting a lot of content for season 5, so you never know what can happen between that. I don't really know how the pacing would be to see a romantic relationship happen between Will and Mike, but I guess we'll just have to see for ourselves what they actually do, and if this thing will actually be a real thing. Like I said, I highly doubt it. Either way, I feel like I'm kind of content with where things are now with their relationship, just because I feel like it has more meaning than if they were to just throw romance in there between them. For me, it just has more meaning the way that it is. With that being said, make sure you check out my other content, because I have a lot of shit like queued up, okay? I have a lot of stuff I have to edit. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next time.